I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the conversation. Today is Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. What a day. What a day. The whole world, I think, is debriefing, looking back on what we did, what did not happen, the red wave that did not happen across the nation, but also looking at what changes are afoot, what challenges still lie ahead, reflecting on what was done, where we showed up, and where our attention provided dividends, directing the political and cultural landscape of the country. Over the course of the next several days, maybe in a major way tomorrow, we'll be talking about what happened in the elections here in Minnesota. Let me just say that we're pleased that, at least in the numerical sense, Attorney General Keith Ellison has been reelected. That hasn't been formally called by AP yet, nor is there official confirmation by the Secretary of State, but the numbers are the numbers. And he, as polls close or as counts are in, stands at 30,000, I think 30,000 votes or 20,000 votes ahead of his challenger. So congratulations. We're going to call that a win and acknowledge Keith Ellison, Governor Walz, and Julie Blaha and Steve Steinman, all the executive team of the current administration, acknowledge them all as victors. Brenda, how you doing, my friend?
Celebrating. That is so good, because I wouldn't watch the news. I did know about Fetterman, but that was about it. What great news, Al.
Well, I think we had a lot of good news. The Fetterman was actually great news. And it was good to have had that conversation with our colleague in Philadelphia.
Mr.
Bob Bogle. Bob Bogle is one of the titans, one of the original grand masters of Black media, of Black newspapering. So it was just really an honor and a pleasure to have him.
That whole panel was powerful. I mean, Washington is always good. He shoots from the hip.
Well, he's an innovator, a thinker, an organizer, and an effective executive. And who didn't join us, who just couldn't get her schedule, was his colleague and wife and business partner, Janice Ware, who is the owner of the Atlanta newspaper. So that family, James Washington, Janice Ware, own the Atlanta Voice enterprise, as well as the he owns the Dallas Weekly, which is another powerful and beautiful publication. And his son actually is running that as publisher in Dallas. But the family,
he was great. He said, "Let me make it simple." I loved it.
Real plain. Well, what I love too, in his comment at closing, after my colleague from here, my Hmong brother, Waming Mua, talked about how power is organized and galvanized in the Hmong community traditionally.
Clans.
And he made reference to the clans, the clan leaders.
I love that.
It was so quick. I called Jim and told him thanks for just being quick as he is. He said, "This is the first time I've uttered the word clan with a smile." And so that's culture. That's about culture, right? Our culture and the notion
but they
clanship so negative by experience. There's another way of looking at it. Yeah. And so it was really cool, really good.
It was a great panel. I loved it.
We've got a great program today. Let me begin by sharing with you a video of our first guest. And our first guest is here because she's a friend, she's a leader, a visionary, an effective business leader, but also I want to celebrate the relationship she has with the Comcast Rise initiative. She's one of 100 businesses, I think, that experienced or got a $10,000 investment from Comcast. And we want to thank Comcast for being a sponsor of the conversation. So our strategy for Wednesdays, in part, is as often as we can bring one of the businesses, the Black businesses in our community that were supported by and benefited from the Comcast business initiative called Comcast Rise, and have them tell their story, promote their brand. And we're pleased to do that today with Lucien Olson. Lucien we'll start with introducing her through her video. Then we'll come back and talk to her. Let's do the video.
Let's go. Keep rolling. Come on. Slam them down. 3, 2, and 1. The communities I serve are very diverse. I work with people of all backgrounds, all ages, but specifically for people that maybe there was a gap between what health and wellness they thought it was and where they could enter. So I really help meeting people where they're at and take them to the next level at whatever that means to them. I'm Lucien, and I'm the owner of Revival Training. Revival Training is a full-scale health and wellness company. We offer personal training, we offer health coaching, and online services. While we're a personal training company, we absolutely emphasize the whole being and teaching people how to eat, teaching people how to move, and empowering them to make those decisions for themselves. We were running full scale, working in the gym 7 days a week. COVID shut us down, and that immediately and abruptly stopped our services. We really had to improvise and do things differently and figure out how we could meet people where they were at. Because as we know, during COVID-19, keeping your health and wellness at optimized levels was very important for myself and my clients. Comcast Rise came at the most valuable time. Now that COVID has kind of settled a little bit, the online presence is still of importance, but the visibility, the marketing, and then also a network and tools to work within that network that have come with this grant has really been phenomenal and are gonna absolutely take my business to the next level. I'm honored to be selected as a Comcast Rise recipient, and I really encourage other business owners to reach out to your network, look for mentors, look for programs like Comcast Rise, because really working together you go farther. I think sometimes it's easy to be in our own hole and just try to work on all of it by ourselves, but it takes a team, it takes a village, and it's so important to support small businesses, especially owned by people of color, because it allows the generations that are coming next to see that this space is available to them. Representation is key. And so seeing people that are doing and walking as those professions or in those roles is really important to our community. 5, 4, 3, 2.
So cool. So Lucien, good to see you, my friend.
Wow.
How are you?
Good
Not
afternoon.
only is she gorgeous, but look at this display and presentation. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm angry I'm not in the gym, me and my old self.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
Well, good to see you again. You know, I met you through you're working with Batala. You were her trainer, and I think probably still are from time to time. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
But Batala connected me and you, and I've watched you work and watched your work, and you're doing phenomenal things. I'm so glad that you were chosen as one of the Comcast Rise participants, recipients of the grant, and that you know, you are availing yourself of the opportunity to grow your business through the resources they provide. And I'm loving that you invited other people to reach out to resources as well. But let's talk about you, Lucien, and your company, Revival Training. What's the concept? What's the vision? And what gets you up and moving every day?
Definitely. So I think the short answer is...
Well, let me say this too. My goal is for you to get some new customers.
Oh, well, thank you.
So you should be selling every second, every other word to be, come see my, come go to my website or whatever you want to do. Okay.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
like I said in the video, our goal is to make health and wellness available to everyone. And I say health and wellness because commonly as a personal trainer, people are led to think that, you know, my job is just inside the 4 walls of the gym and during a training session. And I realize that health and wellness it's full scale. It's mind, body, soul. I have an individual maybe for an hour at a time in the gym, but what I really need to do is help them. I need to provide the tools. I need to provide the education on how to make different decisions in their day-to-day life. And I need to help support that mindset shift that comes along with training. All of the principles of Revival, and I conveniently have my logo right here, is built off of the health triangle. So the health triangle just says that the mind, body, and soul all work together, which is true. I have this circle around my logo, however, because that represents your environment. And our environment pulls on each one of these levers so strongly. And from my experience, I have definitely found that having one side that might be strong, or two pillars even that are really strong, that's not enough. And having all three, but then understanding how our environment supports or takes away from the strength of those three is really important. And so just like any area of your life, like needing a coach, that's where we come in. So we do everything for one-on-one, in-person, small group, large classes. We have an app where people train completely 100% online and have, exercise videos and all of the resources that they need to be successful.
How did you get into this business? What brought you to both your personal self-awareness and the thought that you could offer this to other people as well as a business?
I'm grateful that you asked that question, because telling my story has definitely been something that I've been working on very recently, because I realized the power of someone's story and the why behind why you do what you do. I wasn't a student athlete. I didn't necessarily have a lot of time with athletics. I actually had a rather traumatic childhood. I spent a lot of time in the juvenile judicial system. And, my experiences going through high school were just a little bit different. I became a young mom at 16. So I really lived in trauma. And so living in that space, I had to find something to be able to navigate. And so the first thing that I found was yoga, actually. And so yoga was the first time that I actually got to experience that mind-body connection and not be in fight or flight and not be in that mode. And so from there, after yoga, I found my way into the gym. And I think what really did it for me was working with the people around me and seeing the energy shift, seeing the value that I could provide. A lot of times I was just training friends of mine. And then I decided to take it one step higher. And so I decided to become a personal trainer. And when I did that, I knew that I had to have something under my belt to give me credibility. And so I decided to do a bodybuilding competition. And that ended up going very well. And that kind of introduced me to a whole nother realm of health and wellness that I definitely believe support the coaching that I'm able to give today.
That's right. You're a bodybuilder. Are you still a bodybuilder? You still do that competition?
I haven't competed in a while. I still train clients. So I'm a prep coach and I still get individuals on stage. I've been having a lot of people knock on my door on when we were going to make that happen.
Well, I remember Batala was telling me for a minute she was training, doing your bodybuilding training. And so she was coming over here with her arms up and delts showing or whatever, I said, wow.
And it's really nice because my experience in bodybuilding is an aesthetic driven sport. So it's all about how you look and it's the physique. So I also had to tap on the door of, just a lot of self-image kinds of things. And you approach relationships with food really different from those experiences. So after my time competing as a bodybuilder, then I switched to strongman, which completely different focus. Now you're focusing on how much weight you can lift or how you can perform. But again, being in each of those arenas and then being able to bring it back to your average person that, a lot of people will come to me and maybe they never have an idea of competing. Some people do, and other people just end up being their best self. But it's just kind of cool to see and allow your mind to explore what could be available to you if you chose to go after it.
I think we have your website pulled up. Do you want to walk us through any of that? I have more questions. I'm enjoying talking to you. Let me introduce you to Brenda. Brenda Lyle-Gray and I both are 75 years old. We were in kindergarten together.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. It really is.
Amazing.
And so
saying that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have the joy of working together now, 3/4 of a century later, it seems.
Full circle.
It's been great.
And it's amazing.
Really has.
So jump in when you want to, Brenda, and then
I'm just continuing saying, wow.
Oh, well, thank you.
I really am blown away.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, just wonderful.
And
Really.
if I can say one other thing, I kind of told you about my brand, but I think another thing that's important my mind, body, soul, I've had 3 big mentors or big players in my life. And so my grandma is a psychologist. My grandfather was a scientist, and my mother is an acupuncturist, which is Chinese medicine, lots of energy work. I believe those 3 disciplines are what allow me to approach health in the way that I do. And I honestly can't see it any different. So that's a big part of kind of what Revival has grown into.
You know, I wrote a curriculum for a $32 million school in Kansas City, and it was called Central Classical Greek Computers Unlimited. But the whole theme was mind, body, and soul. And it was Al and my alum up to junior high. And then he went to another high school, but we all stayed, the rest of us stayed in Central. But it was so big, Lucien, this ideal of having a training room like they had in the suburbs, and to be able to see these kids who grew up in the inner city and began to examine their body and have certain diets and whatever. It's a wonderful theme.
Yep.
And that mind right now is really fragile with all of the trauma of the past 2 years. And I think the trauma that we've been going through for at least a couple weeks with the election. But anyway, that is definitely a core. And congratulations on your lineage. You know, apple didn't fall too far from the tree. Yeah. Okay, I'm through.
Yes, and I also do a youth mentoring program. So I actually work with the same youth in the seats that I used to sit in. So I do a lot of work with Dakota County. We match mentors 1-to-1. So a lot of my mentorship program is also built on the back of Revival, because honestly, after COVID, adults included, but definitely our young people are at a relational deficit where we just need quality relationships, and we need to see people that are living life at the most optimized level for them. And then also introduce us to other people in the community that we can lean on. So like you said, Brenda, yeah, like that diversity of like seeing that it's available to you and seeing people that look like you, that practice those ways of thinking and those ways of living is like so important, because it a lot of people don't get to experience that.
Yep. And you can feel that energy in your gym.
Thank you.
Pull the website back up, if you would, Bosch. And Lucien, you might walk us through that if you want to. Tell us what people how they come to know you online.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is my main page. So this is kind of just like a lot of our about a kind of high level. Like I said, we offer a lot of different services. And a lot of times when clients come on with me, they kind of want the full gamut. They want the nutrition, they want the training, they want the coaching. And I always like to emphasize, like I match and exceed energy always. So the effort that someone gives me, I'm going to match that. But it's a lot to take on at once. So sometimes you want to kind of strategically have a second to look at what your goals are, what your experiences were that got you here, and then make a game plan to move forward. So if you went to the bottom of this page, there is a join the tribe button. And I call my training group or all of our clients the tribe. And so if you clicked that, that would allow you to apply for coaching or just get more information on our services. So whether that's group training, one-on-one training, drop-in classes, or nutrition coaching and meal planning. The one thing that I really like is there's an option for people after you get that information to book a consult call with me. And the people that do that and then book a consult call, it tells me a lot about them. Because training and coaching is very much a relationship. So that trust goes both ways. I want to know that, you know, we share maybe the same principles. I want to know that you feel heard and that you were able to express, you know, where you are and what you want to do. And so I think a lot of times it can be intimidating for people to start a big new program like this, or they see the things that I do maybe on social media and they're like, oh no, I'm not there. But I honestly work with everyone, every age, I've rehabbed with clients that have had full knee replacements, various surgeries. And so really my demographic is a mindset, and it's more of just an energy, or a goal, a common goal.
Mm-hmm. Let me go back to some of the things you said, and I'm just curious to the degree that you want to share. I think when I met you, my impression at first was, a suburban kid, right. But you tell me that you had a challenging upbringing. How much of that can you go into? Because I think what you have just shown us now is this breadth of experience that fuels your conviction and your tenacity. I think that you are coming across, and you have always, as a person that's defined by this concept of fierceness.
Thank you.
Fierce,
Thank
right?
you.
Tenacious, focused, driven, all words I associate with you. And so talk about, again, how you have worked with trauma and how you look back at yourself as a child that you said, had some conflicts. What were the conflicts, that, if you care to share them? And how have you evolved? What did you do to become Lucien?
Man, so I grew up in a single parent household. I lost my father when I was 3 months old. So unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to meet him. I have a lot of people that, when they say sorry, I always empathize and think about my older brothers who did not grow up in the house with me, but were young boys when they lost him. And so I can't imagine how painful that would be. However, in my household, my mom struggled with various mental health issues, substance abuse. So in my younger years, I raised my younger brother and sister. My younger brother, definitely while he was an infant. It was a very abusive household, emotionally and physically. But at some point, and this God always comes through. When I was in 7th grade, my family suffered from a house fire and we lost everything. Life was not great before that, but it thrust me into a completely different environment. I lived on the east side of St. Paul. I had a very connected friend group. When we lost our home, we moved to White Bear Lake, which was not a diverse school at the time.
Let me tell Brenda, this east side of St. Paul's kind of a rough neighborhood.
Okay.
It's a it was a rough white neighborhood. And White Bear, where you moved to, might not be rough, but it sure was white.
We had a couple of those.
Okay.
Oh, yes. And quite honestly, I had never been in an environment like that before, like White Bear Lake. I remember very clearly walking into my first day of 8th grade and looking down the hallway and thinking I only saw this in TV. Like I only saw this image of all of these girls that were dressed a certain way and talking like I had only seen that on like Disney Channel. So it was definitely a shock, a big culture shock. And that was kind of where my, a lot of aggression came out. I was different. I wasn't really embraced. I didn't feel like I fit in. I was actually counting down the days that I thought that I was going to be getting out of there and going somewhere else.
My youngest daughter went through the same thing at a private school. So I know that feeling.
And even being biracial, like I'm not white.
Yep. She was a little bit browner than you, but she stood out.
The winter here is not doing me any favors. But I think it was absolutely during that time when I began to handle my triggers differently. And so that was expressed through aggression, that was expressed through fighting, that was expressed through drug use. A lot of my aggression, a lot of my fighting was what sent me away quite often. Ironically, the very first time that I went to a juvenile detention center was a night that my mom drank too much and she physically touched me. And so I retaliated. And that was my first time going down to JDC. I mean, I clearly remember the sheriffs even knowing that there was something off about how the call that they got to whisk me away. But I mean, as we know, once that system has you, it was just a series of probation violations, truancies, which, I didn't have a parent that ever at any time growing up got me up in the morning to go to school. So that was always an issue, but it was those experiences that landed me in some detention centers. And from there, it was honestly my daughter that saved my life. So I became pregnant with my oldest daughter at 16. I don't know where I would be if I did not have her. And that was what forced me to get a license. That was what forced me to get a job. That was what forced me to get a place to live. And so that was really the change. And that was the deal breaker for me. So at 16, I kind of got to work as far as like figuring out what life was going to be.
Amazing. And so I love that you did refer to the lineage, the skills that your grandparents bequeathed to you. Talk about what lineage means to you.
Lineage means a lot to me. I actually just lost my grandfather a year ago this November. And I've been reflecting on that a lot. What is lineage? What is legacy? And how is legacy carried on? I think while I tell that story, and while unfortunately my mother might not be in the best light, I understand, or I try to empathize and understand the experiences that she had and why she is the person that she is. I feel like the more I understand myself, the more I can fully express myself or be myself. And that's a large part of what my coaching is like the whole goal of life is to know yourself. And so much of knowing myself is knowing what was before me. And that takes a lot of work. And we talk about self-work and all of that kind of stuff a lot. That's like the trendy thing, but it doesn't feel good all the time to sit in and actually do. And so I think like my meditation helps me with this. It's just like coming back to it with a clear mind and like looking at like, even if you come up with things that might not be comfortable to sit with, just being open.
A couple of questions. And I don't know if you know Anika Robbins or not, but she's with us in the backstage. I'm going to have her come in and kick it with me about the elections that we just did. But I want you to be here for the entire program. Some other friends of yours and mine might be joining us as well and keeping this conversation going. But I wanted to ask you, Lucien, to think about what advice you're giving community people in general about avoiding weight gain in the upcoming holiday season. That's everybody's. I mean, you add the holidays, number one, but coming out of COVID, number two, coming out of inactivity, sedentary lifestyle. So that's a general question that I want you to just dive into any way you want to. And I want to make it personal to me. So I have, I did a video 10, 12 years ago about getting fit at age 60. And my trainer, Tyrone Miner, and we did a lot of work creating the Insight to Health Fitness Challenge. And we did that for several years and got groups of people together to do group training. And it was very good.
Amazing
I think
program.
I was kind of sidelined by a couple of things. One was, I think I got a prostate cancer diagnosis. That was one. And I also later got a heart failure diagnosis. And after all of that, got through those things, then COVID comes. So I've not gotten back, but in my mind and in my heart, I know that what I need is to reconnect, to reignite, because I loved doing the workout, so it's here right now in my head, but the body isn't doing it yet. So I'm going to ask you, how do you motivate a 75-year-old guy like Al McFarlane to get back on this horse and keep riding into the sunset the proper way? So first of all, just holiday thoughts. What do you think?
Man, well, I mean, the first thing that I always lean back on, and I learned this in health and exercise psychology, was that the number one predictor of your success in health is the person that you have at home. So I always encourage people to have the conversation with the people around them, because accountability is love. And so the people around us need to know, it's imperative that they know what we are trying to work towards or how we are trying to be better, so that they can support us. And a lot of times join us. Another big thing with the holidays is really just planning ahead. And I know this is something that a lot of people say, right? But like planning ahead in the sense of, if I know I have a social gathering, I'm going to make sure that I move earlier, and I'm going to make sure that some of my non-negotiables are there. So like my non-negotiables are hydration, protein, and fiber. So one thing that I know that people commonly do is, like, the holidays are coming, I know I'm going to eat a really big meal, so I'm not going to eat it all until we get to that meal, because I'm going to save it all for dinner. That's what we don't want to do. That's what we don't want to do, because when we get to that point, our body is just going to reach for anything, right? And then obviously at that point, you're so hungry, you are also going to reach for the highest calorie foods that are generally not the healthiest. So I always tell people, like, when was the last time that you were really hungry that you wanted chicken and broccoli? Usually no one ever, because when we get to that point, our brain says get calories and get calories fast. And that generally comes from foods and or drinks that we should not always be consuming. As far as you, sir, as far as getting back into the swing of things, I think you need to find a community and tap into that community, so that you know that there is someone, something, an environment that's missing you anytime that you don't show up. And then determine what showing up looks like, because a lot of times, like, we're so quick to count what we didn't do. We need to be more cognizant of our wins. And like, if you make the gym 3 times a week and that was your goal, or you didn't make it at all the week before, that's worthy of talking about. And that's worthy of the people in your life knowing, so that they can congratulate you.
Got it. Listen, thank you so much. Hang out. Let me bring Anika Robbins in, if she's still in the back room. There she is. Anika, how you doing, my friend?
I am well. How are you?
I'm well. Congratulations to you, number one. I think you did a phenomenal job.
I'm applauding.
You did a phenomenal job in getting our people out to vote. And I want to take a minute just to do a debriefing, early debriefing. We'll do it again and again.
Yes.
We should take a minute right now to take a deep breath and review what was accomplished yesterday.
Wow.
That's all we're saying. We can't stop
I'm
saying wow.
You know, I'm extremely proud of my community, our community. I'm proud of our state. You know, the word trifecta has been floating around. Super pleased to see that we retained our Attorney General, Keith Ellison. That caused a great deal of anxiety last night and this morning. But it just shows how critically important it is to really educate voters and make sure that they're aware of what's at stake and why it matters to them. And so, yes, we are proud of our work with Black Votes Matter Minnesota. But listen, 3 Black women elected to the Senate, the first.
Well, let's go to Keith Ellison first.
Yes.
What are the numbers right now? Because you know, the AP or the media haven't formally called it, but the numbers are the numbers, right? And the numbers
are the numbers.
What are the numbers?
I'm sketchy on that. That's where Brett comes in. And I did reach out to him, by the way, so we'll see if he can join us. But you know, it's very narrow, but he's still in the lead. I think it's like don't quote me. I won't say anything. But and then I also understand that
it was a 21,000 vote difference when I looked last.
Yes, I did know about that. Speaking of the percentage, but either way, apparently the state will not fund a recount for these seats, for these particular seats. So
and so here's the rule regarding that. I think if an election number is within half of 1%, an automatic state-funded recount takes place. This is there's a 1 point plus percentage difference as we stand right now. So it's past or outside the range for an automatic state recount. The opposition can choose to pay for its own recount, but their paying for it doesn't prevent the acknowledgement of the victory by the victor at the moment.
That's right.
So,
and if I'm not mistaken, I believe that he conceded his opponent. So I think that we are in the clear, and Keith himself has acknowledged that he has won. And so I think that's the train we're on right now.
You know, Anika, I think of Bobby Champion. He said, yes. Don't let me see November 9th and see what my mood is going to be. So congratulations, Senator Champion. Yes, you got your prayers answered.
It was a fight, you know, but it's sad to me also because you know, it's also reflective of the voting patterns in our state as well. You know, so you had the governor and some of the other leading seats, they won with relatively no contest, but the fact that there was so much pressure and there were some voters that succumbed to that pressure is very telling of the amount of work that needs to be done, particularly in connecting the rural and metro areas of the state. And that has always been something that we've tackled with, you know, which is why, you know, our goals are to continue to expand outward into the state, because there are growing communities of color in other parts of Minnesota. But this win of retaining our chief law enforcement representative,
that was big.
You know, and just all of the other incredible wins. I know there's a lot of attention on the Chauvin case, but Keith has had other wins around, you know, holding pharmaceutical companies accountable with opioids and diabetes medication. I mean, there's just so many other things that it's clear to me that the average Minnesotan may not be aware of. And that's why civic education is so important.
I see Brett is here. Brett, good afternoon, my friend, my brother. Congratulations to you as well, to you and Anika and your team for all the phenomenal work that you've done. I want to say that from my point of view, you can claim victory on many levels.
You know, I thank you.
Al, he sounds like he hasn't had much sleep. Do you think? Are you there, Brett?
I mean, that was a little surreal, and forgive me for the echo if you hear a little bit, but we're, you know, again, you know, you got some great leaders. Anika's been doing amazing work, and it showed, you know, through this cycle. You know, I think what happens too often is when, and Al, I think you saw it on Monday's call even, when Keith's on there and Keith's like, okay, man, seriously, I need all y'all. I need all of you. Come on. I mean, we were at begging point at that point in time just to get the energy going. And I think we have, you know, the biggest lesson that I think we have to learn is that we have to get out of this firefighter mentality. Yes. You know, we know every 2 years that there's an election cycle, or even 3, you know, with the city races, and that we have to stay ready, get ready. And that's where, you know, Anika's talking about that civic education and really starting to get things rolling from there. But we're blessed with having the relationships to be able to get on to shows like yours and to work with partners across the board to be able to say it, and to have people come from. I met, you know, on the Sunday at the Souls to the Polls, a volunteer who came all the way from Southern Illinois, a state senator, coming out to help Keith and everything else. I don't think we really take notice to the eyes that people are watching us here in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And what we were able to accomplish by getting that last push out, and again, 21,000 votes isn't that much, but it's enough. You know, it's ball recount, so enjoy that.
And you know, that was a pretty sexy picture on the front of Insight News that said Black vote, so she might have pulled in a few.
by any means necessary.
That is true.
Yeah. So, you know, but what Brett's saying, that the power of relationships, you know, and we need each other. We need to really continue to work and build in coalition. it's critically important. There is no doubt that that great push from Insight News was critical. We were able to reach at least an additional 100,000 voters that way, and reach folks, you know, the grassroots, the grass tops. But it's so important, and, you know, door knocking, canvassing, phone banking. But again, talking to our young men, you know, that's important. And that's the work that we're looking to continue to do into coming into the year, right? It doesn't stop just around elections. You know, there's this whole thing of accountability and getting some policies passed. You know, we still dealing with, you know, economic pressures in this state as people of color, as Black people. So, I mean, there's work to be done, but definitely for today, we're going to celebrate and embrace we're going to imbibe this.
Good. Anika, and Al can probably explain it better, but the Hmong community was on yesterday, and I was just so impressed with James Washington down in Atlanta said it was the first time he had used the word clan. They work with clans. Al, you explain it. You're more attuned to that, but it was really impressive. And,
Yes.
and we need to start doing that in Black communities all around the country.
Well, yesterday I reached out to my counterparts in Philadelphia, in Milwaukee, in Atlanta, and invited them to come on and talk about the hot races that they were witnessing, reporting on, endorsements they were making in their markets. We couldn't get the connection with the Milwaukee Community Journal. They were trying to get on. It just didn't happen. But we were fortunate to have the connection with Mr. Bob Bogle, who is the publisher of the Philadelphia Tribune. Philadelphia Tribune is the oldest continuously published Black paper in America. And Bob Bogle is a legend in his own right as the leader of that publication, but also as a leader, I think several terms, being the chairperson of the Black Press of America National Newspaper Publishers Association. We were also joined by James Washington, who is the president and general manager, I think his title is, of the Atlanta Voice newspaper. I know he's also the founder and owner of the Dallas Weekly newspaper. Both are major publications in their markets. And James is in Atlanta because he is married to Janice Ware, who is the owner and publisher of the Atlanta Voice newspaper. So we had a chance to talk about, you know, the elections in Georgia with the Senate race and governor's race. We talked about Oz and Fetterman in Pennsylvania. But I also called my colleague here locally, Waming Mua, who is the publisher of Hmong Today, and introduced them and had him talk a bit about the Hmong presence, the Hmong story. But before I invited him on, I said, you know, the Hmong community really is right inside the Black community.
Yes, it is.
In St. Paul and in Minneapolis.
That's right.
You could say it differently. I mean, from your point of view, you could say the Black community is inside the Hmong community. It all equates to the same thing at the end of the day. And I said to him, why don't you come in and talk about your community strategies to get voters out to bring your candidates to success. And he mentioned that, and in the process, he talked about how clan elders meet and decide who they're going to endorse, and they pass instruction on along family lines. Jim Washington said this was the first time I've heard the word clan used in a way that had a smile associated with it, because in our experience, clan, you know, we got a whole different, you know, worldview, because clan was a negative thing. And so it was interesting to have that kind of conversation, and interesting to consider this sort of intersectionality between the emerging communities that are not white. And Bob Bogle talked about that, about Latino, and later on in the day, I was on a program with Dr. Benjamin Chavis, who's the head of the NNPA at Black Press USA, and he talked about the same thing, about how we have to create strategic alliances, particularly with Latino, Chicano communities, and also with Asian and Native American communities. And we're doing that to some degree here in Minnesota. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's the beauty of our coalition and the potential of it, and it showed in this in yesterday's numbers. When we get it together, we win, and especially, you know, again, cannot understate the power of organizing, and it's exemplified by the Hmong community. And they have now nine either senators or representatives. They're punching above, as they say, punching above their weight class right now, because they're organizing and they're being very intentional. They run one or two and they get behind and they move it on from there. And they've done a masterful job, and you're going to see some amazing power. But now we have to remind ourselves in the state of Minnesota that in order to win elections, it's 50+1. And I always remind, and I get a little snide look, but you know, last time I checked, my numbers are better than yours at times, that we ain't got enough Black people to win an election straight out. So we got to work with everybody else to get it done. And Keith's election is a very clear deposit to that, but also flipping it around, that we were instrumental in making sure that Julie Blaha is even close, that Steve Simon's overwhelming the game right now, that the governor has won, that on the Democratic side, that yes, it was people of color that pushed the gains in the House and the Senate to actually now have the majority in both places. And with, now you got to step up and say, with this $9.4 billion surplus, it's time.
It's time.
Hey, last time I checked, we ain't doing the insufficient check again. Now you gotta go ahead and pay it out and make sure that it happens. I do want to say shout out to Westmore out in Maryland. They finally got it right in Maryland. Being a Democratic and progressive, and with a significant Black base out there, that was able to get Westmore over the line, and being the next governor, a young man who's doing some amazing things out there as well. So we just have to, this game is a game, unfortunately, but when we play it right and when we start to understand what our collective power is, that's when we start to make some strides forward. And I think we stumbled into something yesterday, but you know what? Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Anika, you mentioned 3 Black women in the Senate. That's unheard of, phenomenal. Talk about that if you would. Let's give them some props and congratulations and some marching orders as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we continue to see strides where Black women are continuing to show up and present themselves to lead. Claire Umu, many will remember, is from Mayor Carter's office in St. Paul. We also have another young lady. Brett, you might help me with some of their names. But it's, young women, bright leaders, proven leadership, the first time in Minnesota. I mean, it's incredible. So really exciting times. We're still having firsts in this climate, in this environment. Brett, do you remember the other ladies? Let me see if I can pull that up.
I'm trying to track it right now.
Yeah.
But we can't, again, that not only gains in the Senate, but also gains in the House as well, with Mary Frances Clary and with Ruth Richardson going back, Black women who are winning in suburban districts, building coalitions and moving things on from that standpoint. And again, these are going to be this is going to be a very interesting session that's coming up, because they have the opportunity to codify a lot of the ideas that the rest of the country can only wish they can do. And again, there were things that did get done in mixed. Hold on 1 second, y'all. I hope y'all still see me. Oh yeah, I'm trying to do my dual phone real quick here, so I can look up the pieces. But the reality is that we have some amazing momentum that if the communities, really start to coordinate with each other, you're going to see some amazing strides happen for our children, our
Your
families.
camera has moved you sideways. I don't know if you can flip it one way or the
Yeah,
other.
I'm working with it right now. I got to get out of this. I got to get out of here.
Okay.
Zainab Mohammed was the second woman. So the first Somali American woman to join the Minnesota Senate. I mentioned Claire, and still pulling up the other young lady. But, and then I think having folks like Senator Bobby Joe Champion and several other candidates who ran unopposed, Esther Abaje retained her seat. I need to pull my guide up, but several of the Black candidates that ran, they ran successful campaigns. They won. Cedric Frazier is still in the House. And so, we have great representation, and, it seems as if we may be able to get some things done, in Minnesota for the first time, as folks are saying, since 2014. So, but the key then is to have, plans in place and being ready and positioned to do those things. And so, yeah.
Here are the people that we endorsed. Most of them won, some of them did not.
And Hollis. Hollis Winston. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Hollis kept it going. Now the of one of the largest cities. So now you have not only Melvin Carter, but Hollis Winston, and again,
April Graves,
April Graves,
Mike Elliott, but April Graves, we interviewed on this program, ended up winning the Brooklyn Center mayor position.
She did.
And that's,
yes, she did.
So
yes, she did.
She's smart, she's powerful, she's young.
She was impressive.
I think Brooklyn Center was in a no-lose position.
Exactly.
Elliott, a good guy.
Yes.
Young, and April, young, but also charged.
Yeah.
Really, really, really hard charging, fierce, I think.
How did Omar do? Is she okay?
Oh, she won. Yes, she retained.
Okay.
By a large margin. 75 to 25%. So it wasn't a contest.
Talk about any of these candidates if you guys want to. I see Indrid did not win. Indrid was going to city council.
Yeah.
But as you said, Hollis Winston, Brooklyn Park mayor, that's a big, big win.
That's a big win, especially when you consider the many attempts, even prior to Hollis, attempting, trying to get into that seat. It's got a great family, visionary, great goals, and a unifying presence. And so not really surprising there, very exciting. It was interesting to see Betty McCollum, that she's a stronghold still across the river.
Mm-hmm.
But wow, the county attorney race, and really excited for the new Hennepin County attorney, Dwana Witt. And so, Hennepin County residents are particularly excited about that.
Dwana's the sheriff, the new sheriff for Hennepin County.
Yeah.
And that's a major. Now, we endorsed
First
Martha.
Black woman, first Black and first woman in that role.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing. We endorsed Martha Holton Dimmick, but we interviewed Martha and the opponent. The opponent won. And another situation where there was really no losing.
That's right.
For the community. Mary Moriarty.
Moriarty.
Prevailed at the Hennepin County attorney seat. Again, we thought it was phenomenal that Martha Holton Dimmick, a Black woman, was a candidate and a viable candidate.
Yes.
And we endorsed her, but we have no regrets that Mary Moriarty prevailed, because I think she's going to do a great job as well as the county attorney. So having her and the Dwana Witt as the sheriff, it's a 1-2 punch. It's awesome.
Yes,
Great.
it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Most definitely.
I think it's a
So-
new day in Hennepin County. You know, I want to also shout out Rena Moran, who transitioned to become a Ramsey County commissioner. So that's also very exciting. I mean, there's just a lot to be thankful for, proud of, great candidates, and excited to see the change to come.
What do you guys know about Zainab and Claire? What can you say about the two of those? And I don't know the story on Kookie Ellis's.
Oh yeah.
What happened with her?
I good question. I'm gonna have to look those up as well. I mean, that is the embarrassment of riches right now, that we're looking up all these people because of so much was taking place.
Yeah.
You know, even a great effort by Husnia Dent in Richfield, Husnia Dent Bradley, and Richfield, just coming up just a little bit short, and she's going to follow through as well. We just have this emergence that's taking place, and Al, again, we got to say very clearly, it usually gets launched because of what Inside News tells the people. Because that is literally the front line that tells us. And then, of course, with our partners over at Spokesman, but tying in with the work that you do here on a daily basis, faithfully. I mean, it is. This is what it's all about. And
he's a tough boss, Brett.
I know he is. Hey,
yes, tough.
But the whole thing is that when Al asks, we come running, and so
it better be done
because he's always opening those doors for all of us, and that these
many people.
These wins are just as much about the Inside News, pulling people together. Al and Batala and the whole crew over there. We can't thank y'all enough for what y'all do. And I think this session is going to be that session that you're going to enjoy the most, because you're going to be able to influence some policy that's literally going. I mean, let's just cut to the chase. It's going to be $1 billion. It's going to be $1 billion worth of policy coming out, Al. It's going to be.
Let's talk about that, because the past several years, a lot of great ideas, great expectations, bills put forth, strategies. Even that the governor endorsed and supported, but could not get through because of the Senate. And now with the Senate and the House and the administration all in the same party, it's a new day. So you mentioned $9-10 billion. Will move.
I heard 12. Yes,
12 billion. So how does that sound? What do we do as a community to ensure that the money we need to build infrastructure, to support our health, to create wealth, to get housing, to end homelessness, to educate our children, how do we make sure we get that right now? What do you think?
So the biggest thing I got to just impart to everybody is everybody take a deep breath and don't try to rush and try to get everything right now, because what's going to happen is everybody's going to come with the $1 billion idea. Guess what, y'all? But $1 billion goes a long way. We'll work it out together and make these things happen. And so we all need to sit down and have these conversations. And even if we all don't sit down, understand what this is real money that we're able to deal with. And that's in the best interest of not only our community, but in the best interest of our state. Because if we do well, the rest of the state does well. We raise up everybody's abilities to really build a better community and society. So it's communication. Al, I think you are going to be like in the middle of it all, talking about these various policies. And again, these policies are solving problems: homelessness, education, ending recidivism, really starting to strengthen our various nets that need that extra additional, but understand that, that when we do it together, we're going to be stronger. We're going to be better off for it. So when we come together, start to understand that there is some shared success with each other, I think we're going to be in great shape. Collaboration, coordination is going to be critical. And I think, led by our senior leadership as it relates to the various electeds, Bobby Joe is going to be at the forefront with a lot of this stuff. You're going to have Fu Lee, who is the bonding chair as well. That's going to be putting some things together. We just got to communicate, coordinate, and collaborate and bust our behinds to get this thing done. So I think Sean started talking about legislative priorities. I don't think that meeting has been set yet. And I can guarantee you that somebody's going to have a difference of opinions. But at the end of the day, as long as we work it out together, we're going to be all right. And again, $1 billion goes a long way, people. Everybody doesn't need $1 billion. Everybody just relax.
There are some efforts. There have been some work that has been happening around an agenda around, setting legislation and policy around health and wellness, around housing and education and youth and business. I think it was initially spearheaded by ALF and led by Dr. Stephanie Barrage, I think is her name. And so there have been conversations with both the governor and lieutenant governor in attendance and supportive. So I'm hopeful that all of those efforts that have been building over the past year or so will result in something tangible for our communities. And I know people don't like the word reparations, but as Brett said, when you support and amplify the Black community, then everybody comes up, everybody wins. We can't win while leaving some behind. And we do need to, clans and tribes is not unique to the Hmong and Asiatic communities. We naturally come from various tribes in Africa as well. But we've left some of those ways because, as Brett says, everybody got the $1 million plan, $1 billion plan.
No, $1 billion plan. Everybody got the $1 billion plan.
But I really love you saying the communication and coordinate and collaborate, right? Like that really is the name of the day right now, is how do we marshal all of our collective, bandwidth, brainwidth to come together to create this plan that benefits all.
I was listening to Roland Martin yesterday. He did 6 hours live with a phenomenal panel of Black experts talking about all of the contests and all the nuances. And one of the guests he had was Reverend Barber out of North Carolina, who went deep into understanding how many people that are poor that are ignored by the Democratic Party. And that if we figured out a way to go after the impoverished, the poor, the left out, the left behind, and what he said rang true to me, because too often, the party seems to go after the college students or the soccer moms or the suburban. They have generally tried to not have to acknowledge the presence of Black voters. We've been forcing them to acknowledge Black voters' presence, but the acknowledgement at this point, from my point of view, is into the realm of the most visible in our urban community, the most organized, but there still is a subterranean pool of people that are outside. And Reverend Barber said, and I'm going to keep talking it and running it by our community, how do we identify, he said, the millions of people that our systems don't even think about, and these are the ones we should be creating policy to support their transformation, their ability to become fully engaged as residents, as citizens, and we've still managed to bypass paying real serious attention to them. So how do we do that? Today, Brett, then Anika, then is the first day of the next campaign. What do we do? What's the next campaign?
As I was telling a lot of our candidates and a lot of our people, November, what we're going to talk about November 9th. Cause win, lose, or draw, there's another day. And so now we have the blessings of these majorities that we have supported. And now we have to put pen to paper thoughtfully collaboratively, and with an eye on ensuring that it actually does hit all the people in a way. We can, if we're audacious and steadfast, we can create equity in the state of Minnesota. And we have the gavels. What people forget about this thing called politics, which is it's the art of the possible, connecting people and everything else, is showing, that you can work together collaboratively in order to solve big issues and big problems. That's and how we work together for it. And once we start to see success within ourselves, and even from a broader standpoint, the reason why we're going to do and share the story of we're doing these investments in order to solve this, and this problem. Oh, I get it. How can I help you? That is what we need to really start to rally around, because we do a great job of studying the problem here in Minnesota, but we never put the process in place to solve the problem. Guess what? Once we solve these problems, there's going to be other problems. So let's go ahead and knock these things out and move on from there. So, the biggest thing is going to be, is it going to be one large meeting? It's going to be multiple meetings. It's going to be a lot of things. Yeah. But at the end of the day, when we position our leaders to say, here are our requests, here are our recommendations for policy that comes with the necessary money, and not at 10 cents on the dollar either, that it is actually going to benefit not just our children and push them along, but to make sure that we don't have to ask the question, so how are our children? We know how our children
Let's do this, Brett and Anika. Let's figure out how we build into the conversation some kind of weekly check-in on politics. We have to have politics in the name of politics and for the sake of politics as a topic of discussion, so that it becomes part of the dinner conversation everywhere, all the time, for everybody in our community. So let's build that in. I'm going to be leaning on both of you to help organize that as a regular feature of what we do here at the conversation. Brenda, go ahead.
Can you close with Robert Vogel's declaration about us undermining each other?
I
thought that was so powerful.
Go right ahead.
No, I want you to tell it.
Well, Vogel said the challenge we have in the Black community is that we too often have the most difficulty working together, and that we often will undermine each other. And that is the problem that we have to address. If we solve that problem, everything else will fall in place as well. So we have to be intentional, specific, planful, and figure out. And here's what I would say about that, Brett. You're saying find the solution to the problems. To me, it's a question of also creating the definition in our mind, in our bodies, our spirits, the idea that we are the solution.
Yes.
So there's no problem that we cannot solve, because we present ourselves as the living solution to every problem that exists. And I recognize you, Anika. I recognize you, Brett. I recognize you, Brenda, as the solution to everything. And I address you, calling on that solution power in your DNA. And I'm hoping that you will call on the solution nature of my DNA, that together we collaborate and we change the world. We change the world by being ourselves.
Indeed.
Okay, guys, take care.
And take good pictures of the celebrations.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Anika. Congratulations, Brett.
Thank you so much.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.